In the vast deserts of Oman, the sands do more than shift. They whisper, they sing, and sometimes they roar. For centuries, travelers swore the dunes themselves carried a voice that haunted caravans, startled explorers, and gave birth to legends of spirits buried beneath the earth. What makes a desert sing? And why, in one of the most silent places on earth, does sound echo louder than reason? The Rub al-Khali, the Empty Quarter, is the world's largest sand desert. It covers over 650,000 square kilometers, stretching across Oman, Saudi Arabia, the United Arab Emirates, and Yemen. Bigger than France, almost as large as Texas. Its dunes rise like mountains, some over 250 meters high. This is a place of extremes: searing heat, no permanent water, shifting sands that can bury entire landscapes overnight. And yet, it was not always barren. Beneath these desolate dunes lie traces of a greener past. Satellite scans reveal ancient riverbeds and fossil lakes, proof that thousands of years ago, this desert was once alive with water and vegetation. But in its present form, the Empty Quarter remains almost uninhabitable. Few dared to cross it until the 20th century. In 1930, British explorer Bertram Thomas made the first recorded crossing. He described nights filled with eerie vibrations, as if the desert itself was alive. A decade later, explorer Wilfred Thesiger followed, writing that the sands shivered with strange sounds. Local Bedouins already knew these voices well. They called the phenomenon sands that whisper, and believed they were warnings from unseen forces. But what was behind these desert songs? The first explanation is scientific. When dry, perfectly rounded grains of sand slide down the steep face of a dune, they begin to rub against each other. If the grains are uniform in size and moisture-free, they synchronize, like instruments tuned to the same note. This produces a booming hum that can be heard for miles. Not a random noise, but a resonant frequency, as if the dune itself were a giant drum. Studies show the pitch depends on the size of the grains. Larger grains create deeper, bass-like tones. Finer grains produce higher notes, and the sound can reach over 100 decibels, as loud as a subway train. In 2006, researchers at Caltech recreated the sound in a laboratory sandbox, proving the phenomenon could be triggered under controlled conditions. Later, scientists in Paris discovered that the vibrations of grains self-synchronize, making the dune act like a massive loudspeaker. But the mystery deepens. Not all dunes sing, even when conditions appear similar. Some remain silent, refusing to hum or roar. Some produce a fleeting murmur. Others roar for minutes at a time. Oman's dunes are among the loudest in the world. Why here and not elsewhere? To the Bedouins, science was never the answer. For generations, the sounds were explained through legend and faith. They believed the sands were filled with jinn, invisible spirits mentioned in the Quran, creatures of smokeless fire who roamed the deserts. When the dunes moaned, it was the jinn whispering, warning, or luring travelers astray. Some tribes avoided certain dunes entirely, fearing they were cursed. Stories told of entire caravans disappearing, swallowed after ignoring the warnings of the whispering sands. Camels, it was said, would refuse to cross when the dunes began to hum. Others believed the sounds marked the presence of buried cities. The most famous legend is that of Ubar, also called Eerie of the Pillars, a fabled city mentioned in Islamic tradition. Some called it the Atlantis of the Sands. It was said to have thrived on the incense trade before being swallowed by the desert as punishment for arrogance. In the 1990s, archaeologists using NASA satellite images discovered the ruins of Shisr, a site in Oman where ancient caravan routes converged. Many believe this was the inspiration for Ubar. For the Bedouins, the voices in the dunes were not the wind. They were echoes of spirits, warnings of vanished kingdoms, reminders that the desert keeps its secrets buried deep. Another theory sees the sands as more than music, but as memory. The Rub al-Khali is not just empty sand, it is a geological archive, preserving traces of Earth's climate shifts and human history. Underneath the dunes, scientists have found evidence of ancient rivers that once cut through Arabia. Sediments reveal wetter periods when monsoons reached far deeper inland than today. Stone tools and fossils suggest early humans once walked these lands, hunting along green valleys that are now deserts. The desert also hid the trade routes that once carried Oman's most prized export, frankincense. For thousands of years, caravans crossed these dunes, bringing incense to the temples of Egypt, Rome, and India. Satellite mapping shows tracks converging at Shaisur, the same site linked to Ubar. Could the booming of the dunes be shaped by these buried layers of history? Geologists suggest that subtle differences in mineral composition, compacted strata, or the layering of ancient riverbeds could enhance resonance in certain places. In other words, when the desert sings, it may be amplifying not just sand, but centuries of hidden landscapes. The Whispering Sands remind us that not all mysteries are carved in stone. Some are alive, shifting, and ephemeral. Across the world, deserts sing, in China's Dunhuang Dunes, in Chile's Atacama, in Nevada's Eureka Valley. Different continents, different sands, yet the same haunting song. What connects them? Perhaps nature has its own hidden language, one that transcends borders and centuries. Maybe these sounds are not meant to be solved like a code, but experienced, reminding us of our smallness before the vastness of the earth. So, what do you think? If you stood in the empty quarter, surrounded by silence, and suddenly heard the dunes roar like a living creature, would you think of physics and resonance? Or would you wonder if ancient spirits were whispering through the sands? The desert may never give us a clear answer, and perhaps that is why it continues to sing, to keep us listening, searching, and wondering. If you enjoyed this mystery, join us next time as we move from the voices of sand to a riddle carved in stone, a monument that speaks louder than any whisper.